Hi, this is Shannon Seaver, and today we're looking at section 3.3, truth tables for negation, conjunction, and disjunction. This is part 1. On our agenda today is to use the definitions of negation and conjunction and disjunction, and to construct truth tables. This last part, determine truth values for a specific case, will be taken care of in part 2. First of all, we want to look at some possible values for P and not P. You know that the statement P, I visited London, I could have either visited London, which would make it true, or I might not have visited London, and if I hadn't visited London, the statement would be false. So there's two possibilities for every statement. They could either be true or false. So if I look at the negation of P, then that means it's the opposite of the first truth value. So if I say not P, if it was true to start with, then it will be false in this column. So everything in this column will be the opposite. Negation is true only when both simple statements are true. Here I have two simple statements. I visited London, I visited Paris. So when we have a conjunction of I visited London and Paris, notice that when this one's true and this one's true, the compound statement is also true. The English example for this is I visited both London and Paris. On the next row, we have I visited London, but I did not visit Paris. So since they are not both true, it's false. On the following row, we have false for I visited London and a true I visited Paris. Since they're not both true, this has to be false also. And in the last line, they're both false, so this is also false. So notice that the only time when you have an and statement where it is true, it is only when they are both true to start with. So this is only true when this one is true and this one is true. A disjunction is the opposite. It is only false when they are both false, when both simple statements are false. So notice that P and Q, P or Q here, we have true, a true, and this is true. A true, a false, this is true. A false, a false. I'm sorry, a false and a true. This one's true. And then the last one, this is the only time that it's when this is false. The first column, the second column have to both be false in order for it to be false. So let's look at some English examples to maybe help you think about this. 3 plus 2 equals 5. Well, we know that statement is true. Or, which is what we're looking at right now, or London is in England. Well, both of those statements are true, so therefore our disjunction is also going to be true. It just wants one or the other or both to be true. In the second row, we have 3 plus 2 equals 5. That is true. Or London is in France. Well, we know London is not in France, so that's false. But the fact that the first statement is true makes it a true compound because one of them is true. The next one, we have 3 plus 2 equals 6. Well, that is a false statement. And then London is in England, which happens to be a true statement. The last one is true because of the fact that one of them is true. And the last one, we have 3 plus 2 equals 6. That's false. But London is in France. That is also false. And since they're both false, we cannot say that that P or Q is true. They all have to be false. On this one, we want to determine the truth value for each statement. Here we have P, 10 is greater than 4. Well, we know that's a true, so I'm going to put a true next to it. Q, 3 is less than 5. That is also true. So both of those already have true values. So if we have P and Q, we have true and true. We know that if you have two trues with an and value, the outcome is a true. We have not P. Well, if P is already a true, a not P is going to become a false. And Q is true, so I'm going to put true here. Remember, with an and statement, they both have to be true in order for it to be true, so this one's going to be a false. P, we have, it's already true. It was true up here. And we have or, not Q, since it was true to start with, this is going to be false. T or F, remember, in order for them both to be false, in order for or to be false, they both have to be false. Since one of them is true, the outcome is true. And then not P, we have a false statement or a false statement. This is the one time for an or statement to have a false is when they're both false. So that is false. So I want you to take time to try this one on your own and turn back on the video when you have when you want to check your work. Okay, the first thing you should note on this is that the first statement is true, but the second statement, 2 times 7 equals 20, is a false statement. So anytime you have a plain Q down below, it's going to be false, but a not Q is going to be true. So look at A. We have true and false. Remember, when you have an and with a true and a false, it's going to be false. The true and true. With a conjunction, they both have to be true in order for it to be true. A false or false. For and disjunction, they both have to be false in order to be false. And then we have a false or true, so that one will be true. So now what we want to look at is how to construct a truth table. When you construct a truth table, the first thing you need to do is to set up a column for each statement. So if you look below here, I have P, I visited London, and I have a whole column set up for that. And I have Q, I visited Paris, and a column set up for that. Notice that for each value, I have it paired up with every combination that the other statement has. They both can be true or false. So I want to make sure that I have every possible combination of true and false. I can have true and true, I can have true and false, or I can have false and true, or both false and false. The next part that I would do is actually set up another column next to this, like over here. And in that column, I would have some kind of operation. Either I might have a conjunction, or I might have a disjunction with these two statements. So in order to see this, let's look at an example. Here I want to construct a truth table for it is not true that P and Q. So already I'm going to go ahead and start with this column here in P, and I'm going to put a true, a false, and a false. Notice that with the P column, usually I keep all my truths together and all my F's, my falses together, just to make it more orderly. And then the Q column, I'm going to alternate T, F, T, F. This way I can make sure that I have every combination of true and false that I can get. Now, let's look at the and statement. Remember, in order to have an and, both P and Q have to be true. And we get that right away in the first row. Since the first row is both true, this will be true. And since we have no other row that has both of them true, the rest will be false. In the last column, we are negating everything that we found in this column right here. Since the top one is true, this will be false. And the rest being false, the rest will be true in this column. Let's look at another example. We have not P or not Q. Once again, let's set up our P's and Q's in standard format. We have T, T, F, F, T, F, T, and F. Not P is going to be looking at the P column and making it opposite of that column. So this will become a false, false, a true, true. Same with the not Q. I need to look at the Q column and make sure that this column is opposite of that. So we started off with a true in that column. This will be false. True, false, true. Lastly, we are looking at a disjunction. So remember that since we have a not P, we are looking at this column and this column together for this. And we're looking for two falses to make a false. The rest would make a true. We get that on the top column. So this would become a false. Notice that the rest of them have true in them, so the rest on this column would also have a true in it. This one's a little bit more difficult. We have several things going on in this, so we have a bigger truth table. Let's make our standard truth table again to start with. Now, not P. Pause the video and see if you can remember how I did this in the last video and check. Hopefully this is what you got. Notice now we are looking at not P or Q. So we have to look at this column here and this column. We are looking for an OR. So since it's an OR statement, we are first starting to look for two falses, and we have them right here. Since those two are false, this one's false, the rest will be true. On the next column, we're going to look at a not Q. Since this is not Q, it's the opposite of everything in this column, so we'll have a false, a true, a false, and a true. The last column, we're putting them all together. We have this in here, so I'm looking at these two columns. And since it's an AND statement that puts them together, I'm looking for two trues. I have it on the bottom, so this one is going to be true here. The rest will be false. So let's review. When you have a negation, it completely changes the column it's negating. So if the first column has a true, the negated column would become a false at that row. A conjunction, we are looking for two trues to make an outcome of a true. The rest would be an outcome of false. On a disjunction, we're looking for two falses for an outcome of a false. The rest of that column would be a true. That is it for today.